Technology. It's what allows us to interact with the world around us in new and exciting ways every single day. It's what's allowing me to share this presentation with you and what's powering the device you're using to watch this. But sometimes it takes a bit of time before it becomes integrated into our everyday lives. Hi everyone, my name is Phil Hassan, and today I'll be focusing on how technological advances can sometimes cause both excitement and skepticism in us when they're first released. Now, that's a pretty big topic, so I'll focus on virtual reality since that'll give us a pretty recent example to go on. We've all been there. You know, that feeling we get when we're introduced to something that's so different, so immersive, and so exciting that it just blows us away. I know I can definitely relate to this little guy's look, and I'm sure you've all been introduced to some piece of technology that's done that to you too. But we're lucky to be living in a generation where we're being introduced to powerful new technology on a pretty frequent basis. Moore's Law originally introduced in 1965, and it introduced the idea that the number of transistors per square inch on a chip would double every 2 years. In other words, tech advances would occur at an exponential rate over time. Now, on one end of that spectrum, that constant surge of technology can sometimes make us feel like we're always playing catch-up just to stay on top of everything that's coming out. You know, it feels like every day I'm learning about something new that lets me do something that I wasn't able to do yesterday. You know, nowadays, right when you think you're at the cutting edge, you've probably already fallen behind. On the other hand, though, we're frequently being introduced to new technology and tools that allow us to interact with the world around us in great new ways. Not only that, but a lot of this technology nowadays is priced at a level where a lot of people can actually own a piece of that technology themselves. Now, something that's been causing a lot of waves recently is virtual reality, and it's often one of the most talked about topics whenever you go on tech websites and blogs. Now, our venture into virtual reality type technology started a long time ago, but it's only recently where it seems that there's been a whole lot of momentum coming behind this technology. On the topic of how companies use virtual reality content, Shel Holtz wonders why more companies are not yet including this type of content in their sales pitches. Mr. Holtz even mentions that the idea of producing VR content for these pitches may induce guffaws and eye rolls from some people today. Now, that statement just got me thinking, why are some companies thinking this way? To support what Mr. Holtz said, wouldn't including VR content in your pitches make you look as though you're on the cutting edge and on top of the times? Also, aren't we usually, as people, open to technology that allows us to interact with the world around us in different ways? The International Data Corporation predicts that the virtual reality hardware market will move past the $2 billion mark this year in 2016, and the amount of VR hardware being shipped out will increase from 9.6 million this year to 64.8 million in 2020. That's almost a 7-time increase in the amount of shipments in just 4 years. Now, with that in mind, it's possible that some of those guffaws and eye rolls are because some major tech innovations can take a bit of time before it becomes accepted or widely used by companies and their customers. It's possible companies haven't even started thinking about VR content yet, and those that might still be holding back just to figure out how they could actually leverage the technology for themselves. And we're still pretty early in this surge of VR technology, and we're still figuring out all the ways that we can leverage it in our day-to-day lives. Some companies might even still trying to figure out whether it's just a gimmick. Keep in mind, companies not only have to create VR content, which may be new to them, but their customers need to have the hardware to view it. Having said that, some companies, especially in the entertainment industry, are already making VR content available to the general public. For example, Six Flags are passing VR headsets on certain roller coasters to offer an enhanced experience, and companies like Jaunt have websites and apps with free VR content that take you inside certain events, among other things. But nowadays, we can't talk about VR without mentioning the gaming industry. It's made big pushes in recent years to leverage the technology, although this isn't the first time that this industry has experimented with making games more immersive. Me and a lot of other gamers got our first experience with similar technology back in the mid-90s. I remember a friend brought his Nintendo Virtual Boy to school one day, and I remember there being a small lineup of people who wanted to try it out for themselves. Now, even though it never really took off for various reasons, just thinking about that experience today just reminds me of how excited we were at the prospect of being able to immerse ourselves even deeper into our gaming experience. And now, with the massive advances in VR technology that we've seen since then, game developers are frequently releasing titles that are helping to expand that gaming experience. And based on the momentum that's been building in recent years, it looks like the gaming industry's foray into VR content could be around to stay. Now, before we get there, Mark Zuckerberg said back in 2014 about the Oculus Rift that between 50 and 100 million units of the headset's developer kits need to be sold before it'll really be a meaningful thing as a computing platform, and then that's when it'll start getting interesting in terms of developing out the ecosystem. But going back to what Shel Holtz said about companies hesitating to create VR content for their pitches, even though the sale of VR headsets are expected to skyrocket, we're not there yet. And until the potential benefit of having VR content outweighs the costs and difficulties of creating it, some companies might not jump into this yet. But if the projections we looked at earlier do come true and VR technology evolves to the point where it's much easier for companies to create the content and for us to view it, then it's more likely that companies will be ready to take that leap and invest in creating that content, and we'll be more inclined to consume it ourselves. But when all is said and done, it'll be exciting to see where virtual reality technology will take us and the new ways that we'll be able to immerse ourselves into different types of experiences. Thank you for your time, and make sure to check out the description below this video for more information and the references I used for this presentation.